22 years, the Champ Cars have visited the Canadian province of Ontario for what has developed into one of the most charismatic events on the schedule. The Steelback Grand Prix of Toronto is coming up. Last week at Mont-Tremblant, a brilliant battle raged among the raindrops, with Robert Doornbos edging SEBASTIEN BOURDAIS for the victory. But following the checkers, the series champion accused the rookie of unfair driving.
We're not supposed to drive like that in Champ Car. We're not allowed to block.
The controversy carried over to the podium ceremonies, where emotions were still running high. We're almost ready to go for the 7th round of this year's Champ Car World Series. Also the second event in the Canadian Triple Crown. With a special welcome to our viewers in Canada on Global, my name is Jeremy Shaw. Alongside me, as usual, is James Hinchcliffe. James, the big story before the race is the weather. Your Atlantic contest this morning was interrupted by torrential downpour. Seems to be drying right now, but perhaps some difficult decisions for the teams in terms of the setups.
I think you're right, Jeremy. The track is drying, but if you look overhead, clouds are looming, so we might find ourselves in a similar situation to last week in Mont-Tremblant with changing conditions throughout the race.
Yeah, 1 week ago in Mont-Tremblant, Robert Doornbos mastered those treacherous conditions to score a magnificent first victory in just his 6th start for Minardi Team USA.
It was a great weekend in Mont-Tremblant, a great circuit, great atmosphere with the fans, and yeah, we proved it in many practices that we were one of the fastest, if not the fastest. And with all these changing conditions, with the, you know, with the slicks on the wet condition, then the wet tire, and we proved to be the fastest, and it was a great feeling.
The Dutchman was rightly delighted, but SEBASTIEN BOURDAIS wasn't quite so impressed. While the crowd made its feelings clear, there's little doubt this was Robert Doornbos' day.
I think I beat him fair and square. I was quite a bit quicker in the wet conditions, and you know, I cruised to my first victory, and I didn't see him in my mirror. So, like I said, if he thought he could pass me, he should have passed me.
Fascinating rivalry. That's an amazing reaction from SEBASTIEN BOURDAIS, particularly from the crowd. No penalties were issued after last week, but on Friday, Will Power felt the wrath of the officials for impeding Bruno Junqueira in the first qualifying session, and as a result of that, Bruno had this heavy impact in the wall in turn 8. He's had a fast car all weekend as Bruno for Dale Coyne Racing, but did a lot of damage to the front of the car. Bruno was absolutely furious, and Will Power was assessed an 8-minute penalty, which meant he had to sit out the final part of yesterday's final qualifying session, therefore wasn't nearly as high up the grid as he thought he could have been for Team Australia. Let's have a look at the starting lineup for today's Steelback Grand Prix of Toronto. SEBASTIEN BOURDAIS, for the 28th time in his career, will start from the pole. Justin Wilson, former winner here in Toronto, will start alongside on the front row. ORIOL SERVIA, his best starting position of the season for the Forsythe team. Simon PAGENAUD, he's on a bit of a roll as well for Walker Racing Team Australia.
Inside of the 3rd row, Bruno Junqueira rebounding with a fantastic qualifying effort, his best of the season for Dale Coyne Racing, and Canadian Alex Tagliani for the R Sports team. 4th row, Will Power obviously suffering from his 8-minute penalty in qualifying, and the best ever qualifying from HEYLEN with Conquest Racing.
Yeah, an excellent position by the Belgian. JANI will start on row 5 alongside a local hero, Paul Tracy. His time was a 58.8. He lost 0.3 of a second in the final corner. If he'd found those 0.3, he could have been on the 2nd row of the grid. DALZIEL, an excellent job for PCM. Robert Doornbos from hero to 0 this week.
And his teammate Dan Clarke also struggling with Minardi Team USA alongside Tristan GOMMENDY, last week's pole sitter, way down on the outside of the 7th row. Down to row 8, we have RAHAL, who's been struggling all week to come to grips with this track here in Toronto, and KATHERINE, who was 4th quickest in this morning's warm-up despite a disappointing qualifying.
She did an excellent job. She's been quick all weekend. She was 9th on Friday. Kind of lost the setup yesterday, but fast this morning. As you say, Alex Figge alone at the back. We'll have 3 on-board cameras for you this afternoon. One of them will be RAHAL. As you said, James, a very disappointing run for him in qualifying. His worst starting position of the season for the rookie, but he has raced before here in Atlantics. Paul Tracy will carry several cameras for us this afternoon. I'm sure he's going to bring us some exciting action. He wants another hometown victory. He has won here twice in the past. Justin Wilson, he'll start from the front row in the R Sport car, the CDW machine of the R Sport organisation. And Justin's had a lot of success. He was 1 year a couple of years ago, he was on the pole here last year, and now he starts up front as well.
Yeah, Justin actually had trouble getting away from the grid at the beginning there. That's why you see him running sort of mid-pack. He should be able to take his position up in that second starting spot alongside Sebastien Bourdais. So we should see him, the red car in the middle there, coming up the middle. There you go. So good to see that we had the car start, unlike Tristan Gommedy, who did not get going from pole last week.
That's right. Unlike in Formula 1, you can take up your grid position as long as it's not impeding anybody else, and that would appear to be the case there for Justin Wilson. Once again, a standing start here. They've been spectacular, the 4 races we tried them, but last week there were 3 guys stalled on the grid. Let's hope we don't see that this afternoon. There is the 15-second board. In about 10 seconds now, the lights will come on when all 4 light up, then in sequence. Then once they go off, the race will be underway, and this is a tremendously exciting start. Here we go. Start there by ORIOL. SERVIA takes the lead at the start. 1 car stalled on the grid. I think it was Dan Clark, James, but otherwise a clean start. Look at Sebastien Bourdais there, a big sideways slide.
It's Robert DOORNBOS who stalled on the grid, and they're going to have to bring out the full course caution if they can't get that car moving. You see the safety workers there trying to get him going as the whole field funnels down into turn 3, and it looks like ORIOL SERVIA has jumped up into the lead.
Well, one of the Team Australia cars, and that was Will Power diving up the inside. It was a brilliant start by ORIOL. He's lost the front wing there on the Team Australia car.
He certainly did. He had contact there, and ORIOL leading from Sebastien Bourdais and Justin Wilson, who had slight contact with Bruno Junqueira in the first corner. Alex Tagliani up to 5th, and I believe it's Simone Pagenaud now running 6th. His teammate will be falling back without that front wing and will have to stop on this lap.
Yeah, so Pagenaud did not make a good start. Look at Paul Tracy's been involved in it as well. Oh no! It's a disaster for Paul Tracy. He was so excited. Then Tristan Gommedy also involved in action, and Graham Rahal and somebody else as well who's canned in the back of PT. So absolutely disastrous first lap. And of course we're going full course caution. Might be one of the, it's actually Katherine Legge who's involved as well. So poor old Katherine. She was so much looking forward to this race. She's really struggled the last couple of events. Cleveland, in actual fact, she parked the car. The handling was so bad. Also struggled last week as well.
And HEYLEN involved as well, it looks like. This has just been a tragic start to this event.
Very tricky conditions. The track's pretty much dry now, but there's Katherine.
And Alex Figge looks like he's gotten involved in this melee as well, but tragic for Paul Tracy, who we're looking at now. He's obviously was looking for a good result here in his hometown, and he just got caught out. He had the front wing of Will Power jammed into his front wing, and when they came around the quick turn 7, that's a flat-out corner here. Obviously, his front downforce was compromised. No front grip, went straight into that wall.
This is an absolutely disastrous start for us. We've lost almost half the field, James.
Yeah, this is really not the best way to start it. We're going to try and get to a replay of Paul Tracy, and here we go. You can see now, heading through turn 3, there's a lot of moisture on the lens there. You can see he's picked up the front wing, and already he's struggling to keep the front end of the car turning. He comes through here, big understeer. See how close he gets to the wall there. He knows something's wrong at this point. From that vantage point, the driver cannot see the front wing, so he wouldn't know necessarily that there's a wing stuck under his wing.
And this flat-out corner here at turn 7, look, he turns into the corner, a bit of dampness there as well. That all adds up to a big impact for Paul Tracy. I'm sure he was hoping, I don't know whether, you're right, it's difficult to know whether he knew there was the other front wing stuck underneath the car. There's a replay here of ORIOL SERVIA coming through in the lead, and we look at the back of the picture. Here comes Bruno Junqueira in 4th place, then Tagliani and Will Power, and behind him is PT, and look at that heavy impact with the left front of the car behind him.
Oh, wow, that was a phenomenal shunt there. Jan HEYLEN checked up, Tristan Gommedy runs in the back of him.
Nowhere to go, and poor Tristan Gommedy, he would have had no view of that whatsoever. All of a sudden the car sails up in front, on board the Graham Rahal. Whoa!
Yeah, Graham got hit from behind. Yes. Obviously lost his front wing there. He might have escaped without suspension damage. He's in the pits right now. That car is being worked on, but he did hit that wall pretty hard, so it would not surprise me if there was more than just a wing damage on that Newman Haas Lanigan racing car.
Poor old PT, just another disastrous race for him, and nothing seems to be going his way this season. We're underway in the Sebastian Grand Prix of Toronto, but we're under caution. So still under caution here in Toronto. ORIOL SERVIA leads the pack. There is Tristan Gommedy. Gosh, he's had no luck. Alex Figge along with him there, and Katherine Legge and Paul Tracy. Good grief.
Those are 4 of the 5 drivers involved in that first lap incident. Of course, the other one being Jan HEYLEN. I'm not sure. I think he made it back to pit lane. There we go. We see his car there, but that is terminal damage. He will not be getting back into this race.
Well, I don't know, though. With all these cars out of the race, maybe they can repair that right rear corner on the car and send him, even if he's many laps down, he's going to be able to pick up quite a few positions. And you never know. Of course, you know, we've a long way to go in this race. It's a timed race, an hour and 45 minutes. So, you know, what else is going to happen? You never know. Maybe you can actually get him out and pick up a few more positions.
It would be a smart thing to do. They don't seem to be, it doesn't seem like they're rushing to get that car fixed, but as you can see on the track now, some light patches, some dark patches, the conditions are still very, very tricky. They're out there on slick, dry weather tires, but certain parts of this track are still quite damp. You can see when we were on board with Paul Tracy heading down the back straight, quite a bit of spray heading up, so still under caution here in Toronto.
So on board here with Graham Rahal, the Medizone car of Newman Haas Lanigan Racing. The good news for Graham is that he at least has been able to rejoin the fray and has not lost a lap. So he is at the back of the field in 12th place. Robert Doornbos also got going. He is just ahead of Graham on the road. So we've got 12 cars still running and 5 cars out of the race, it would appear. Whether anybody will get back out, I think it's probably unlikely. We saw all those 4 drivers that were involved down there in turn 8. They're all walking their way back to the pit lane. And, you know, it's tricky conditions. Your Atlantic race a little while ago, as you know, it was a torrential downpour. There were only 11 finishes in that, unfortunately, not including you. Let's have a look, though, at this very challenging racetrack in Exhibition Place in Toronto, James.
It very much is here at Exhibition Place in Toronto. It's a 1.76-mile circuit here. And we head down the front straight towards the Princess Gates into turn 1. A tricky, bumpy braking zone. Very important to get good power down as that rockets you through 2 all the way down the straightaway. Lakeshore Drive into the heaviest braking zone. Slowest corner we have, turn 3. Great passing opportunity. You rocket up through 4 and 5. Then a very tricky turn 6. Few guys can make mistakes there. It's a long blind corner. Down through the flat out turn 7. Heavy braking for 8, which sets you up for the 9, 10, 11 combo. It's a left, right, left. Very key to get a good rhythm and a good run onto that front straight. It's probably the most technically difficult street circuit that we race on, Jerry.
Look at that picture there. You can see that white line kind of painted sort of down the middle of the racetrack. That was put there just last night, and that was as a result of the driver's briefing yesterday. You remember, we talked about at the top of the show, the controversy last weekend in Mont-Tremblant, where Robert Doornbos was accused by Sebastien Bourdais of blocking. You're not allowed to deviate from the racing line. The officials saw nothing wrong last weekend. We didn't see anything wrong either, but Sebastien was absolutely incensed. And it came up in the drivers' meeting yesterday. They talked about it, and they talked particularly about this Lakeshore Boulevard here, where there's a couple of sort of kinks on that straightaway, and you can sort of take a sort of defensive line, which is against the the rules in this series. So what they've done there, they painted that white line, and a driver now who's sort of the pursuer, let's say, or the pursuee, I should say, the guy in front, has to keep to the left of that line in the braking area, and he cannot move inside that line in order to defend his position.
Yeah, it was interesting because obviously there was the issue last weekend in Tremblant, and of course we always have an issue when we come here to Toronto because of the nature of that back straightaway. One of the other problems is that Lakeshore is quite bumpy, and the least bumpy part of that straightaway is all the way to driver's right. So
down here with Jimmy Vassar of PKV for the second week in a row. Jimmy, chaos at the start of the race. Have you talked to Tristan on the radio?
Yeah, thankfully he's okay. You know, it looked pretty scary there, but you know, just one of those things. That's a blind corner coming over there with the crash that happened in front of him. You know, it really looked like it was tough for him to even see, you know, what was going to be around the bend. And but we're just happy that he's okay.
Remember last week, Tristan was on the pole in Montreal. The car would not start at the start of the race.
Yeah, terrible luck for the Frenchman. Boy, I mean, he did a fabulous job to qualify on the pole 1 week ago in that wonderful circuit at Mont-Tremblant, about 300 or 400 miles away from here, northeast. Over in Quebec, but this afternoon it's all gone wrong for him as well, and he certainly doesn't deserve fortunes like that. He's had a good start to his season, has Tristan Gommendy, after a couple of difficult years in the Renault World Series and in GP2, and he's looking to rebuild his career in a Champ Car World Series, and he's certainly shown his paces.
He absolutely has, and he's led a few of the races here on off-pitch strategy. Held off Sebastien Bourdais for quite a while at one race, so he certainly has the pace. I just want to jump in quick and correct ourselves. We did say it was Will Power who had lost his front wing. It was in fact Simon Pagenaud. We saw him coming out of the pit lane there, so he is now fitted with a new nose and is running last on the lead lap.
Yeah, in 12th place there is Simon Pagenaud, the second of the Team Australia cars. Will Power, his teammate, is up into 5th, and They've been there or thereabouts this weekend, Team Australia, as they are, it seems, on a pretty regular basis this season in the Champ Car World Series. Derek Walker's team and Craig Gore, the co-owner from Australia, they've really put together a great organisation, and they are competitive on a regular